Summer vacation season is almost here, and if you haven't made your plans already, you need to get going. For some popular international destinations, it may be too late. This is going to be a busy year for travel, especially abroad. People want to explore new places, attend some of the major sporting events in Europe, or just get away and chill out. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
In this episode, what you can expect to pay for airfare, hotel rooms, and rental cars. Plus tips from travel experts on how to deal with all the crowds and the other hassles associated with summertime travel. In just a bit, a good friend of the show, travel reporter Christopher Elliott, will be joining us from somewhere in South America. But let's start with a price check. And here to help with that is Haley Berg. She's the lead economist at the popular travel booking site Hopper. She joins us from Boston.
Hi, great to be with you.
So let's start with the view from 35,000 feet of what we're looking at this summer for travel, and then we can dig into the specific pricing. So what's the broad view?
Broad view is we're expecting another very busy summer travel season for domestic travelers, a little bit of relief on prices. For international travelers, it's still going to be a hefty buy if you're going on one of those bucket list Europe trips.
I understand that summer travel is starting earlier in some cases because kids are getting out of school earlier. How do we factor that into our travel plans?
We are seeing that some of those late May, early June dates are increasingly popular. Take Memorial Day weekend, for example, this year. It's actually the most expensive weekend of the summer so far. And what we see is that families in particular, they travel when they can, when they have time off, and when prices are inexpensive. So the earlier they can go, the more they can actually save.
Okay, so let's start with airfare. What are we seeing both domestically and for international travel?
Good news for consumers. Prices headed into summer are already lower than they were at this time last year. Airfare this month is about $290 per ticket if you're going on a vacation within the US. For summer, we're expecting prices to peak at around $315 per ticket. This is very much in line with prices last year and actually at or below where prices were pre-pandemic and much better than what we saw a couple years ago. If you remember, 2022, people were paying over $400 or $500 on average for those domestic tickets. So major price improvement, especially for families on a budget.
And internationally?
Prices remain high. Take Europe, for example. It's the number one destination region for American travelers. Prices are down on average about 10% from last year. A ticket to Europe this summer will cost you around $900, but they're still much higher than they were in 2019 and even in some cases higher than in 2018.
You know, I'm really surprised that airfares aren't higher with all the demand that's taking place. I've flown a couple of times recently. The planes were absolutely packed, and the airlines are already saying that they're not going to have enough planes to handle demand. I'm surprised they haven't jacked up the airfares.
We're seeing the highest prices on international because that's where the number of seats available to book are the most constrained right now. There just are not as many seats flying transatlantic or trans-Pacific, and that's why prices have stayed high. On the domestic front, airlines have been able to be really smart with optimizing their available aircraft, putting larger aircrafts on routes, going more often to try to buoy those capacity numbers, and that has helped keep airfare low, even as demand has remained really high in the domestic market. Now, we know that Boeing delays starting in 2019, the pandemic, have resulted in airlines not having the fleets that they expected. We might see that start impacting prices in the next couple of years, but at least for this summer, we shouldn't see an impact on domestic travel.
You know, if price is not your concern, but getting a good seat is, you may find that you're stuck in the middle seat or you can't buy even a premium upgrade if you want it if you don't book a couple of months out. The good seats are really going quickly.
Absolutely. I have flown recently and ended up in a middle seat both times. Airlines are flying with more seats filled than they did pre-pandemic. And that's great for profitability, optimization, but it also means planes are a little bit more crowded than they used to be. And that's why many airlines are focusing on expanding their premium cabin classes. We're going to see more premium economy, main cabin extra, probably less first class and business so that those middle cabins can really expand.
And they can also make more money by getting us to pay more for the better seat.
Hey, if you're willing to pay for a couple extra inches of legroom or free Wi-Fi in flight, whatever it is, the airlines will find a way to serve it to you.
And we should point out that a lot of airlines have recently increased their checked baggage fees. So if you're going to check luggage, you better find out what the new price is. That could add up if you have a family and a whole lot of bags.
If you are traveling, I always recommend try to stick to hand luggage or carry-on luggage. It can save you on baggage fees, but also, given the volume of disruptions that happen during the summer months, about 25% of flights are delayed on departure, gives you some peace of mind that when you get to your destination, your bags will also get there.
So what about the price I can expect to pay for that hotel room, both in the U.S. or internationally?
Hotels in the U.S. are averaging just over $200 a night. Prices have stayed high post-pandemic. It's hard to add more hotel rooms quickly in the way the airlines can have a flight run an extra time or two to capture that extra demand. And there's so many travelers looking to book hotel night stays. Actually, we just did a survey of Hopper users. 60% of those traveling this summer are going to book at least one hotel night. So there's a lot of demand for hotels that is pushing prices up. But the good news is that there are a lot of ways that you can reduce the cost of a hotel stay just by being a little bit smarter about when you go and where you go.
So maybe I need a rental car. What can I expect to pay for that?
Good news on rental cars. Average nationally is about $42 per day. That's very much in line with what we've seen historically. You'll pay a little bit more in some of those cities like Phoenix or Houston that are popular right now. You can expect the same during peak summer months. Orlando, a lot of the vacation destinations in Florida, very inexpensive to rent a car. So keep that in mind. Average travelers looking for about a 4-day rental. That's, under $200 or $300 for a car rental.
Are we still in a situation where the rental car companies haven't built up their fleets, and if you go to a popular place and wait too long, you may not be able to rent a car?
Rental car companies have changed how they're operating the economics of their business. And one of the main differences post-pandemic is that rather than investing in brand new fleets of cars, they're really letting these older vehicles run out for many more years than they typically would. Now, you can go to your rental car pickup and they might not have a vehicle available, but what the companies have gotten very good at is, one, extending the life of those vehicles, and two, moving supply around.
Are there still any airline or hotel deals that I can snag at this late date for summer travel?
Absolutely. There are still deals available if you can be flexible. Great example, hotel stays. Typically, travelers are going to book a Friday and Saturday night stay. If they're making it a long weekend, maybe stretch that to Sunday night. If at all possible, try to skip Saturday night. If you can skip Saturday night, you can typically save about 25% off your rate. So Sunday night to Monday, extending that long weekend into midweek, it's a great way to reduce the cost of your stay. And in cities like Las Vegas, Miami Beach, sometimes you'll pay double just to stay on a Saturday.
And if you are flexible, you can find some pretty sweet deals with these last-minute flash sales, right?
Absolutely. We're getting into the peak of summer, which means there are going to be a lot of promotions and sales from hotels, rental cars, flights, even companies like Hopper will be running a hotel sale in a couple of weeks here. So keep your ear to the ground. Look for those deals because there are going to be last-minute promotions as, everyone in the industry tries to get Americans out there for vacation.
So we all know the popular places people want to go. Can you suggest any maybe not so popular places, but that are really fabulous that people might want to consider if they get blocked out of where they thought they wanted to go?
We are actually seeing that some of these smaller, more off the beaten path destinations are seeing big increases in demand. So if you're thinking about going somewhere a little off the beaten path, consider somewhere like Bar Harbor, Maine, access to Acadia National Park, or Cody, Wyoming. These two are both trending for those more outdoors vacations. Definitely fewer crowds and a little bit of a different experience.
If you're considering a hotel versus an Airbnb sort of room, have the prices almost stabilized? Is there much advantage to not staying at a hotel except for maybe get a bigger space and a kitchen or whatever? But from a price point, are they almost the same these days, or does one have an advantage over the other?
So they are very comparable right now. The main difference we see is that oftentimes Airbnbs in downtown locations, think on the water in Miami Beach, that's going to cost a pretty penny more than one of the many hotels on that same strip, just because it's more privacy in the same area.
And before we let you go, one final tip to save everyone money.
My last tip is for those travelers who have not booked their summer vacation yet, are thinking about it, even thinking about a bigger ticket trip like one to Japan, South Korea, France, some of those big destinations. Book as late in the summer as you can. Try to take that trip the last 2 weeks of August, even early September. You'll save about 30% on airfare. You'll save about 30% on your hotel stay. So shift out that vacation if you can.
Haley Berg is a lead economist at Hopper.com. It was so nice to finally talk to you. I watch you on network TV all the time. Thanks for sharing your advice with us.
Great being with you.
Okay, straight ahead, a man who travels for a living and shares his advice with all of us. Travel expert Christopher Elliott. He's going to be joining us from somewhere in South America. I'm Herb Weisbaum, sitting at my desk here in beautiful Bellevue, Washington. And this is Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
If you like what you hear, we hope you'll consider being a Consumerpedia supporter by using the link at the bottom of the show notes to make a small contribution each month. This is Consumerpedia.
Some of us travel for work. Some of us travel for fun. Our next guest, travel reporter Christopher Elliott, does both at the same time. You probably read his popular On Travel column in USA Today and other major publications. So, Chris, where in the world are you right now?
I am on Curacao, which is in the beautiful ABC Islands, just off the coast of Venezuela.
Wow, nice. And give us some of the places you've been recently getting there.
Oh, wow. I think it's been about a year since I've been on with you. So
yes.
I've been everywhere. I think we were in New Zealand when I talked to you the last time. So since there, I've been to Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, back to the States, and then Latin America. So I've been to Ecuador, Chile, Uruguay, Brazil, and now I'm touring the Caribbean.
With you, it's probably easier to ask, where haven't you been in the last year?
I know. Well, I don't really have like a permanent residence. So I'm literally on the road 365 days out of the year.
As we're all aware, if anybody's been near an airport recently, people are traveling again, which means higher prices and more people trying to go where you want to go. You recently shared some tips for traveling better this summer in your On Travel column.
My advice really is, and this might come as a little bit of a shock to you, is go ahead and follow the crowds. And the reason is that last year, everyone took one of those, what do they call them again? Revenge
vacations, right.
Yes.
Right.
So now people are going back to their favorites. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You want to just make sure that if you are going to a place that everyone else wants to go to, that you have a really good reason for it. There are some places that are heavily affected by the crush of visitors. For example, Paris during the Olympics. I would not be in Paris in July and August unless I had tickets to an event and I was there to see the Olympics. Otherwise, wait until maybe afterwards, early September to go. There's also Taylor Swift. She's coming to Europe. And wherever she goes, there's the Taylor Swift phenomenon where the hotels all sell out. So I would avoid that unless you're going to see Taylor Swift. Again, if you're going for that event, then it's absolutely fine to be there. Usually prices come way, way down in early September. And I look at my calendar and early September is still summer. So you can still have a summer vacation without the high prices.
Last couple of years, we took longboat trips on the Rhine and the Rhone and the Danube. And we went in September or October to get past all the tourists. The colors were beautiful. We weren't fighting the crowds and the prices were lower. It was wonderful.
People don't realize this, but September is actually the best month in Western Europe to go anywhere because the weather is still fairly stable. It doesn't rain that much. I was actually on a riverboat cruise. It was along the Rhine a couple of years back with Viking River Cruises. I was there in late September. The weather was gorgeous. And the leaves were just starting to change and you had the fruit falling from the trees and there were no tourists there. My favorite part is like you had it all to yourself. So yeah, that's definitely something worth recommending.
So if you're going to follow the crowds, you really need to book sooner than later. You may even be a little bit too late right now because the rooms are all going to be taken. The planes are going to be packed. I mean, if you've waited this long, you better get moving really quickly.
Absolutely. If you're going somewhere in the United States, then you still have a little bit of time. But for Europe, it might already be too late. And listen to me, I should be talking to myself about this because I have not booked my ticket to Zurich yet. I'm hoping that there'll still be some flights left. But honestly, if you are going and you have to be there on a certain week, see, that's the thing, is that I'm a little bit more flexible. But if you have to be there on a certain time, you should really start looking at airline tickets right now.
One tip I want to share based on personal experience, the day before we were recording this podcast, I just came back from a consumer conference in San Diego. And both airports, both at SeaTac in Seattle and San Diego Airport, and also I stopped in San Francisco, all three airports had significant problems. Don't cut it close to get to the airport because chances are something's going to go wrong somewhere.
3 hours for international, 2 hours for domestic. That's what my advice is in the summer. People are constantly cutting it close. There's always one person who likes to get to the airport just in time, and then the other person wants to get there the day before. And so there's this negotiation that goes on. So I'll settle the argument right now. 3 hours for international, 2 hours for domestic.
You heard it. The man said it. Okay. So not only are hotel prices higher, but prices are higher for parking at the hotel. You recently wrote about that.
Yeah. They figured out that they have a way of monetizing one more thing, which is parking. And the way that they're doing it is that they're charging you for parking whether you bring a car or not. That's right. You don't even have to have a car and they'll charge you for parking.
You wrote about a boutique hotel in Chicago where one of your readers said that they were charged a parking fee even though they didn't park the car, and they were basically told, well, somebody's got to pay for the parking lot.
That's right. That's right. The interesting thing about that is not only are these fees starting to become much more pervasive, but they're also increasing. Some of the parking fees that I've found were over $100, which is outrageous.
So it sounds like you should maybe check with the hotel what the parking fee is going to be and then add that into what you're going to pay for the rental car if you're not touring around. And maybe if you're like doing a big city, you'd be better off skipping the car and skipping the hotel fee and doing an Uber or a taxi cab or something like that all around the place.
Yeah, that's good advice. What I would say is when you're researching your hotel, check to see if they do charge a parking fee and who gets to pay it. Some hotels will tell you, basically everyone pays the parking fee and they just add it to your bill, a little bit like a resort fee. But if you happen to be at a hotel and they haven't disclosed it and then they add it to your bill, you should say something. And if they don't take it off, you have every reason to dispute the charge on your credit card bill. And I've seen that actually work.
So it sounds like reading the fine print before you book is more important than ever because you want to check for any of these hidden, especially these resort fees that aren't even being charged by resorts anymore. It's just a tricky way of upping the price, the advertised price, by tacking on a mandatory hidden fee.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Usually when you're checking into a hotel, they'll slide a piece of paper under your nose and they'll say, okay, here, sign this. That's where it'll be disclosed. And then once you sign it, then they say, well, you've agreed to it, so we're not going to do anything about it. But sometimes you'll find that fee tacked on at the end. It's called a hotel folio. That's the bill that you get. Mm-hmm. And you'll find it at the very end. And if that's a surprise to you, then it means that they're doing something unethical. They're basically putting something on your bill that you weren't expecting. And you should say something. You should either ask someone to take it off. If they won't, then talk to a manager.
I would say, knowing that I have a little bit of rights there, I would say, where was this disclosed when I booked the hotel room? And if they can't show me that, then if they wouldn't take it off, I'd absolutely challenge it with the credit card company.
Of course, if it happens to you, Herb, you can say to them, do you know who I am?
They don't care.
And then if they don't say it, you kind of like rip your shirt off, revealing your superhero suit. And they're like, oh no, it's Consumer Man.
Don't you know what they would say? We're a hotel, sir. We're not here to make you happy. We're here to make money. I mean, it really is getting ridiculous that they're really annoying their customers. I mean, what business goes out of its way to annoy its customers with hidden? There really is kind of strange marketing technique. I've never understood that at all.
Oh, it's a long list in the travel industry. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's not just hotels. It's car rental companies. It's Airbnbs and vacation rentals, and especially airlines.
Speaking of hotels, some people don't like to stay at hotels, like to rent somebody else's place. Has anything changed in the rental home area that people should know about as they travel this year?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've been getting more complaints really about fees, cleaning fees, that sort of thing. And a little less than a year ago, Airbnb made a small change, but made a really big deal about it, where it started to quote an all-inclusive price. So when you asked for a rate, it would give you a price that included taxes, fees, cleaning fees, and that sort of thing. But there was a catch. And as a consumer advocate, I find this catch to be absolutely infuriating, is you had to there was this little slider, and it was only for US customers, and you had to slide that little slider in order to get that rate. Otherwise, it would continue quoting you a low rate that you wouldn't be paying because they would add all these extras to it. So really, Airbnb, very bad.
We at Checkbook have lobbied, and I know you have, for give me the full price when you're advertising the price. Stop this nonsense of give me one price, knowing that I'm never going to pay that price. I know they do that in Europe, and I just want to share a quick story with you. I was booking a hotel room, and I had to call Marriott because I was using some points and some free things. And when we got done, the agent said on the line, well, let me check to get your final price. And she goes, wow, that's the final price. Yep, Europe. They don't do that kind of thing. They advertise the real price. Why don't we do that here in America? That it's so frustrating that what you're being quoted is not the price you're going to pay.
It's crazy. And when you talk to hotels about it, they say, well, it's really difficult because every state has their own taxes and, it'd be too hard to quote it all in the same rate. Nonsense. They have all the software that they need to calculate an upfront price. They're just doing it because they sell more hotel rooms when they quote you a lower rate. They know it. And if they tell you anything else, they're just lying to you.
Well, up next, dealing with air rage and how the Elliott advocacy team can help you if you have travel troubles. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and you're listening to Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. The busiest airport in the world is Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International. Dubai International takes second place. The top travel destination in the U.S. last year was New York City, followed by Los Angeles. Internationally, the most visited cities are Hong Kong, Bangkok, and London. Most checked luggage arrives at its destination. Still, U.S. Airlines lost nearly 3 million bags last year. American Airlines mishandled the most baggage, followed by United.
So, Christopher, you've written a number of stories about the airplanes that are packed now and less than acceptable behavior by some passengers. That's not as uncommon as it used to be. This air rage, these people behaving poorly in airplanes. What have you experienced and what advice do you have for people?
The number of air rage incidents is actually up this year again. It hit a peak during the pandemic when people were fighting over face masks. Then it came down a little bit, and now it's kind of spiking up again. And I think the reason why is that flights are just much fuller. What the airlines have done is they've created at least 4 different classes of service, because now you have first class, business class, premium economy, and then you have what I like to call steerage in the back.
The cattle car.
The cattle car, exactly. That's where I fly. People just want a little bit of comfort. So you find on some flights, people will try to switch seats. Maybe they're sitting in economy class and they want to move up to premium economy class. They'll try to slide up there just to get a little bit of extra leg room. Really, as a consumer advocate, and I think you probably would agree with me, the airlines should be giving everyone a humane amount of leg room. And that's why the FAA is under a requirement right now by Congress to come up with a minimum seat width and seat pitch rule, because the seats have just been getting way too small. But yeah, that kind of thing really leads up to air rage. We've been seeing more of it recently. My advice is, if you are stuck next to someone who's very upset, or if someone challenges you for your personal space, try to de-escalate it. Definitely talk to a flight attendant. They might be able to move you. That would probably be my first recommendation before you get too involved or get into an argument, is that you try to just move.
And just ask yourself, do I really want to have fisticuffs at 35,000 feet with this person?
It makes for a great viral video, but you don't want to be the guy that they're leading away at the end in handcuffs because you've been a bad boy.
Absolutely. Christopher, a lot of people may not know this, but you not only travel around the world, you help folks with consumer problems, travel and non-travel related, through Elliott Advocacy. Why don't you tell us about that and what you can do for folks and how they reach you?
Yeah, I publish a website called Elliott.org. That's ELLIOTT.org, the Elliott Report. And as part of that, I commit acts of vigilante journalism every day by publishing the names, numbers, and email addresses of all of the executives at some of the major companies, not just the travel companies, but other companies as well. We have car manufacturers, appliance manufacturers, banks, they're all there. And we have the ability to publish these because of the First Amendment. So I'm very grateful to the US Constitution for giving us these rights. The reason that we do it is because so often, you'll have a question about a product or a complaint, and you'll be on the phone and you'll ask, hey, can I talk to a manager when, maybe when they're not giving you what you want? And they'll say, no, there's no manager that you can talk to. Is there someone I could email? No, I can't give you an email address. So we went out and researched all those and found them and published them, and they actually work.
And they do, because when I make speeches and tell people, if you're getting the runaround, contact the head of the company. They won't per se deal with it, but they'll pass it down to an underling. And everybody comes up to me and says, oh yeah, I go to Elliott.org and he's got this whole list and it's fabulous. I knew right where to write. So it does work, and it's a great service that you provide for people.
Well, thanks for saying that. I enjoy helping people, and I hear from people all the time who say that the list has helped them. I also get a fair number of takedown requests and lawsuit threats, and so far we've fended them all off.
Now, how much can your team do for helping people with individual problems? Where do you work on that?
We're a nonprofit, so we're a 501c3, and we help people when they've reached the end of their rope. So we usually will refer them to a manager, and if the manager can't help them, then we ask to take a look at the paper trail, so the correspondence between them and the company. And then we'll reach out to the company on their behalf and try to negotiate a resolution that everyone is happy with. So we have a team of volunteers that helps, and our help is absolutely free. So you can get the help at, the website is elliottadvocacy.org. So it's ELLIOTT and then advocacy.org/help. And just fill out that form, and someone will be with you shortly.
Is there anything else we want to chat about that just came to your mind about traveling before we let you go?
Who knows, what's going to really happen this summer? I mean, no one has a clear idea. It could be a record summer. If the economy heads south, you just never know. People might cancel their vacations. That's always a possibility.
For those of us who live here in Seattle, we're very aware of the Boeing situation. They can't deliver the planes they need to deliver, and that's causing a lot of schedule changes and price hikes for the airlines because they can't do the routes and they can't get the airplanes they need to satisfy demand. That's going to be something to watch out for this year.
I actually wrote that in a story recently. Some of the airlines don't have enough planes to fly because they ordered planes and they're not getting delivered on time. So we could have a real crisis in the summer where we don't have enough planes to fly and people are getting canceled on.
When United Airlines asks some of its pilots to take non-paid leave because we don't have planes to fly, that gives you an indication that something could go wrong this summer.
Yeah, well, you have to remember also that most people drive to their summer destinations. And for that, really, it's gas prices that are driving it. So far, the gas prices have remained fairly stable. They're up just a little bit. But again, if the situation in the Middle East starts to take a turn for the worse, and I'm not sure how much worse it can get than it is now, but we could see much higher gas prices, and that could then affect whether people go somewhere for their vacations or whether they stay home and take a staycation.
Well, Christopher, thank you so much for everything you do, for helping folks, for making us smarter. Give us both of the websites or where you'd like us to go to find more information.
Yeah, no problem. It's Elliott.org, so it's ELLIOTT.org. That's the Elliott Report. And then if you need help with any consumer problem, it's elliottadvocacy.org/help.
And final thought, if my editor is listening, next year, instead of doing this via the internet, maybe I should be wherever Christopher is and we just do it in person.
Yeah, you are always welcome.
Thank you. I might take you up on that someday. Christopher Elliott, thank you so much, and safe travels, my friend.
Thank you.
By the way, if you're traveling sometime later this year, you might want to check out some of our other travel-related podcasts. Number 17, How to Find the Best Deals on Airfare. Number 41, Finding the Best Hotel Rates. And Episode 60, How to Avoid a Big Cell Phone Bill When Traveling Abroad. Just head to Consumerpedia.org to browse previous episodes. And that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you can rate it for us and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us on Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at My Consumerpedia on X, formerly Twitter. I'm Herb Weisbaum. Thanks for listening.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. If you like what you've heard, we hope you'll become a supporter by using the link at the bottom of the show notes to make a small contribution each month. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.